Vecna's rise in Stranger Things didn't start with the Upside Down. It started inside the Creel house, long before anyone knew what Henry was capable of. His family's secrets, their fears, and the strange things happening in their home all played a huge role in shaping the monster he eventually became. Welcome back to Your Nerdy Show. I'm your host, Spoiler Master, and today we're breaking down the Creel family's dark history, how each member influenced Henry's transformation, and the clues the show has been teasing since Season 4. Let's get into the twisted family story behind the making of Vecna. Who is Vecna? Henry Creel's secret evolution. Vecna, the central antagonist of Stranger Things Season 4, is far more than a monster from the Upside Down. His origins stretch back to the human world, where he began life as Henry Creel, a troubled boy from Rachel, Nevada. After an incident in which Henry lost control and paralyzed another child, his parents decided that the family needed a fresh start. In 1959, they moved to Hawkins, Indiana, hoping the new environment would help Henry process the unsettling behavior and emotional instability he had been displaying. Instead, the move became the trigger for the nightmare that would shape the future of the Upside Down. While settling into their new home, Henry discovered that he possessed powerful psychic and psychokinetic abilities. These abilities were not gentle or inspiring. They were overwhelming, invasive, and deeply tied to his perception of truth. Henry was able to sense emotions, memories, and unspoken thoughts in a way that slowly pushed him toward misanthropy. His powers revealed to him what he believed to be the ugliness of the human world, and he began to convince himself that the structures of society were artificial and corrupt. Influenced by this worldview, and by a dark, unseen force beyond the boundaries of our dimension, Henry started to explore the limits of his abilities. He began psychologically tormenting his family with hallucinations, disturbing visions, and the deaths of local animals found mutilated around their neighborhood. Eventually, Henry's powers escalated into violence. One night at the dinner table, the radio interfered, the lights flickered, and Henry unleashed his full psychic force. His mother, Virginia, was violently lifted into the air, her bones snapping and twisting before her eyes imploded. As his father, Victor, attempted to flee with the children, Henry trapped him in a hallucination reflecting the darkest memory of his time in World War II. Meanwhile, his sister Alice suffered the same fate as their mother. When Henry finally collapsed from the strain and fell into a coma, he left behind a horrifying crime scene that would forever mark Hawkins. Victor Creel, found holding his dead daughter with his son unconscious nearby, was accused of the murders, declared insane, and sent to Penhurst Asylum, never knowing that Henry had been responsible. Henry Creel becomes 001. When Henry woke from his coma, he attracted the attention of Dr. Martin Brenner of Hawkins National Laboratory. Brenner took him as his first test subject, designating him 001. To control him, Brenner implanted a device called Soteria in his neck that suppressed his powers and monitored his movements. The removal of his freedom intensified his bitterness and resentment. Over the years, Brenner replicated Henry's abilities in 17 other child test subjects, creating the powered children we meet later in the series, including 11. Henry lived under the pretense of being an orderly in the lab, helping care for the children while being forced to hide the truth of what he was. When 11 arrived, Henry saw in her the potential to help him regain his full power. By manipulating her emotionally, he convinced her to use her abilities to remove Soteria, freeing him from the suppression he had endured for years. Once restored, he unleashed a massacre inside Hawkins' lab, killing the other children and staff with effortless brutality. But when he attempted to kill 11 as well, she resisted him with a strength beyond anything he expected. Their psychic clash was immense, and for the first time, Henry was overpowered. 11 sent him hurtling through a gate into the Upside Down, where his body was shredded, burned, and reshaped by the environment of this alternate dimension. In this transformation, Henry Creel died, and Vecna was born.
Vecna's powers. How deadly is he really? Vecna's abilities are the evolution of Henry's innate psychic powers. amplified and distorted by the Upside Down. His telekinesis allows him to manipulate physical matter, crush bones, and lift bodies effortlessly. His telepathy gives him access to memories and emotions, allowing him to prey on trauma and fear. His psychic projection enables him to drag victims into deeply personal, nightmarish hallucinations that blur the line between reality and mindscape. The signature Vecna curse is the lethal process in which he overwhelms a victim's mind with trauma, lifts their body, and destroys them through grotesque skeletal contortion. What makes Vecna especially dangerous is his connection to the hive mind of the Upside Down. After discovering the swirling mass of particles that would become the Mind Flayer, Vecna reshaped it into its spider-like form, creating a being that mirrored his own fascination with predatory creatures. Through this entity, he gained the ability to influence and control demogorgons, demodogs, and other creatures linked through the Dimensions network. His ability to open gates through ritualistic killings further demonstrates how he has learned to weaponize the very structure of the Upside Down itself for his vision of domination.
I am still very much in hell.
Victor Creel, the father wrongfully condemned. To understand Vecna, it is important to understand his father, Victor Creel. Born around 1919, Victor served as a soldier in World War II. During his deployment in France, he ordered the shelling of a building he believed housed enemy soldiers. Instead, it contained civilians, including a baby whose cries haunted him long after the war ended. This trauma followed Victor home and shaped the way he raised his family, attempting to build a peaceful life free from violence. Victor married Virginia, and they had 2 children, Alice and Henry. By the time they moved to Hawkins in 1959, Victor simply wanted normalcy and comfort, unaware that his son's escalating behavior was the beginning of something far more sinister. As the hallucinations and animal mutilations began, Victor blamed a supernatural force, a demon stalking the family. The night Virginia and Alice were killed permanently broke Victor's perception of reality. Misled by the false memories implanted by Henry, he believed that his own guilt manifested into a literal haunting. When he was arrested and charged with the murders, he accepted an insanity plea deal and spent the next decades in Penhurst Asylum, tormented by the loss of his family. During his incarceration, he attempted suicide by stabbing his own eyes with razor blades, hoping to join his wife and daughter, but he survived, blinded and consumed by remorse. Even decades later, when Nancy and Robin visited him in 1986, he still spoke as though a demon had destroyed his home. He never knew that Henry had survived, and even more tragically, he never learned that his son had become the most dangerous being on the planet. Virginia Creel, the mother who saw the truth first. Virginia Creel was the first person to sense that something was deeply wrong with her son. She wanted the family to rebuild their lives in Hawkins, but the moment the hallucinations began, she felt that the source was not supernatural, it was Henry. Her hallucinations were intense and vivid, featuring spiders emerging from drains, cracks, and shadows throughout the home. As these visions grew more terrifying, Virginia saw Henry's detachment, his fascination with death, and his cold reactions to the suffering in their home. She suspected that Henry needed psychological help, and she intended to take him to Dr. Martin Brenner. Henry discovered her plan, and in his own account later in life, he claimed that she knew what he truly was and despised him for it. When Virginia was killed at the dinner table, she became Henry's first deliberate victim. Her death was the moment Henry realized he could fully impose his worldview on others through violence. In many ways, Virginia's fear of her son was the earliest warning of the horror he would become. Alice Creel, the innocent sister lost to a monster. Alice Creel was Henry's younger sister, a cheerful and hopeful child excited for her family's fresh start in Hawkins. She enjoyed playing outside, loved animals, and had no understanding of the darkness growing inside her brother. When she discovered dead animals in the yard, she was terrified, but she didn't know the cruelty was coming from Henry. Her nightmares, hallucinations, and the cruel prank in which Henry poured a jar of black widow spiders into her bed were signs that he was fixating on her as much as on their parents.
Alice's death was brutal and senseless. She witnessed her mother's murder, only to be killed moments later by her brother's overwhelming psychic force. Her body was found by Victor after he broke free from Henry's hallucination. Although Alice's physical life ended that night, a psychic fragment of her remained within Vecna's own mental realm. In his mindscape, Vecna kept her memory as one of his twisted trophies, a reminder of the first family he destroyed.
Welcome to Hawkins. Patty Newby.
Henry Creel.
Patty Newby, Henry's first love and his last chance for redemption. Patty Newby, introduced in Stranger Things, The First Shadow, represents one of the most tragic relationships in Henry Creel's life. As the daughter of Principal Newby and sister to Bob Newby, Patty felt like an outsider in her own family, partly because she was adopted and partly because she struggled with identity and belonging. Her kind heart and gentle curiosity made her gravitate toward Henry, who shared her feeling of being different from everyone else. Patty became one of the few people Henry genuinely cared for. She believed his powers could be used for good and encouraged him to explore his potential without harming others. Henry responded by creating a psychic vision for her, allowing her to live out her dream of singing confidently before an adoring audience. This vision was one of the only times Henry used his abilities with compassion. However, the dark force influencing Henry, the same one that would later reshape him into Vecna, interfered with their connection. Henry feared that he would eventually harm Patty, and his nightmares began showing him a monstrous humanoid form, an early projection of who he would later become. The force eventually caused Henry to lose control while with Patty, injuring her and confirming his worst fear that he could not escape what was growing inside him. Patty symbolized the future Henry could have had if he had overcome the darkness, making her one of the final emotional anchors lost before he surrendered fully to his monstrous nature.
You can't do to stop this now.
The Creel family's legacy and Vecna's path to destruction. The Creel family's history is at the core of Vecna's transformation. Victor's guilt, Virginia's fear, Alice's innocence, and Patty's compassion each represent emotional extremes that shaped Henry's evolution. Henry interpreted fear, guilt, and trauma as weaknesses to exploit. His family became the template for the mental torment he would later inflict on his victims. His hallucinations he produced in 1959 evolved into the full Vecna curse seen decades later. The emotional scars of his childhood fed his hatred of humanity and created his obsession with reshaping the world into something more aligned with his cold worldview. By the time Vecna resurfaced in 1986, he had refined his techniques, and every murder he committed was a continuation of the psychological warfare he had begun inside his own home. His victims' trauma echoed the trauma he witnessed in Victor. His hallucinations he created reflected the illusions he once forced on his mother and sister. His manipulation of the Upside Down paralleled the control he longed to exert over the natural order of the world. Vecna may be a creature of the Upside Down now, but his origins are deeply human, rooted in the destruction of one family and the choices of a boy who embraced darkness instead of running from it. Our nerdy thoughts. And that's the twisted legacy of the Creel family. Every secret, every fear, and every broken moment that pushed Henry closer to becoming Vecna. The more we uncover about this family, the clearer it is that Stranger Things has been building this tragedy from the start, and Season 5 is only going to dig deeper into how their story shaped the entire war with the Upside Down. If you got something we didn't, or if you have your own theories about the Creels, drop them in the comments, because I'm always down to dive into the weirdest corners of Hawkins with you. Thanks for hanging out with me today. This is your nerdy show, and I'm your host, Spoiler Master, signing off until the next deep dive. Stay curious, stay spooky, and I'll catch you in the next video.
No, what the heck, I'll laugh anyway.